じゃあエアコンディションっていうのが出てる。
FBI agent. Let me ask you this. You were able to go to the CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Committee annual gathering, if you will. And this time, it's been in Florida the last couple of years, right?
Yes, yes. And I'm not sure they won't
go back.
Yeah, I'm just not sure because they're spreading out. They're in Poland. They're starting in Mexico. They're in Italy coming up. They're in Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, tell us your thoughts.
Well, I thought it was great. I mean, it was a great event. Matt Schlapp put together just the most incredible guests. Just everyone, if you think of who you'd like to hear, with the exception of Ron DeSantis, was Matt Schlapp. And I don't think anyone was disappointed. And the stage was just action-packed, one thing right after another, with great thinkers, not time fillers, just really impactful things. Some of the J6ers were there to tell their stories, and Akash Patel, and Molly Hemingway, and Ted Cruz, and just people that you want to hear what they have to say were there. And it was excellent. I hosted a panel. My topic was challenging. I was supposed to, in 20 minutes, talk about the loss of human dignity. That was my assignment. But I actually think we were able to lay some really good groundwork for people thinking about that. Penny Nance, from the current president of Concerned Women for America, and Kimberly Fletcher, who founded Moms for America, and Abby Johnson, the girl who was a former Planned Parenthood clinic director. I just thought the panel was excellent. So that was my part of it, besides what I did on Radio Row. But it was good, and it was interesting because when we left, I was on the plane and I was looking to see what people were saying about it. And Fox, of course, was not there at all. No presence at all. None. And they used to be like front and center at every CPAC. But, Paul Ryan is on their board now. The Murdoch boys, the Murdoch sons, are lefties. And Paul Ryan actually was in a magazine article just last week criticizing Tucker Carlson. So Tucker and probably Laura Ingraham and maybe even Marie Bartiromo, some of them were probably very uncomfortable for the Fox leadership now, but they certainly didn't come to see that. But the other thing I noticed, so people didn't really get to see as much as they have in the past because a lot of people watch Fox, and Newsmax is not available now, which is another story.
You mean on DirecTV?
On DirecTV, yeah.
They are still available.
Yes, sorry, that's right. Yeah.
Because we got them on right now in the studio, so they're still there. They're not on DirecTV. But go ahead.
Then I'm reading this synopsis because I'm looking at NBC, CNN, CBS, and there's all saying this was a Trump event. This is where the Trumpers went. Everybody that supports Trump went to CPAC. And all the people that, Ron DeSantis didn't come. He went to the Club for Growth meeting in Florida. It was like the DeSantis people went here and the Trump people went here. And Tim, that is just an abject lie. That's just not true. First of all, CPAC featured Nikki Haley. They featured Mike Pompeo, who was very strongly hinting a run. Vivek Ramaswamy.
You go for it. I've got it down now because I got it phonetically. His name it's an Indian name, so it is America. He's American. He's as American as I am. I'm just saying, it's not a name you usually run into. It's an unusual name because
I'm not going to get sidetracked on that, but let me just say I think she's interested also. And so, Matt Schlapp did invite Ron DeSantis. Ron just decided not to come, and he went to an event in Florida, which was Club for Growth, but it was major Republican donors who support Club for Growth. So I personally think that was not a good decision on Ron's part, but he didn't ask me, because people like us are the ones that go to CPAC. I mean, it's the red meat conservatives from all over the map and all over the country, and unfortunately for the never Trumpers and the leaders of the Republican Party and the big donors too. Most of the Republican Party, like high percentages, I won't even say 90%, don't quote me on that, but are strong conservatives now. The establishment Republicans they hardly have a presence in the party, and yet they want to control, who the next nominee is, and I just don't think they can do that. So.
Okay, talking to Sandy Rios. Brent, did you have a question for Sandy?
Yeah, I would just, DeSantis is doing his State of the State address right now, and he's going through what his priorities are, and we kind of know what they are.
As governor of Florida.
Parental rights, etc., etc. But I'm told as soon as the speech is over, he's heading for Iowa. I'm sure that has no connection to perhaps his desires to run for president.
I think it
Doing a book
does.
signing, Fred. Come on, man.
No, I think the word on the street is that he's going to announce as soon as the Florida legislature's out of session. But I have such mixed feelings. I think the thing that I would say, because people do ask me, and I'm sure they ask you too, Tim, what do you think about Trump running again? Are you for DeSantis? Are you for Trump? And I think, first of all, these discussions need to be had. Everything needs to be on the table and discussed. It shouldn't be an assumption that President Trump should be the nominee, and it shouldn't be an assumption that Ron DeSantis would be the best choice. And the reason I say that is because so many things unfold during election cycle. Some things become very clear that are not clear now. And I just think, I think my counsel to everyone listening is to just hold your powder. Have those discussions, think through it and pray, but don't let the media and others bait you on this, like there has to be some sort of fight. They'd love nothing more than these two lions. We've got President Trump, we have Ron DeSantis. That they'd love to have them destroy each other, so that because whatever happens, they both have a role to play, important role. So how about if we don't destroy either of them? And if we just really make good judgments as we see things unfold. That's my position on it.
Right?
So Sandy, Mr. Trump.
Yes, all right.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so Mr. Trump made a big speech, got a lot of coverage. Give us your thoughts. And what was the reception, as far as you could tell, to the speech he made at CPAC?
Well, he was, the one thing that I did notice, I would be lying if I said otherwise, it's not the level of fervor that it was.
トヨタの企業ってどこ
but
に
it
あ
was
る
very well received. I mean, he said some great things.
プレーノにあるんでしょ
He's prescient.
でその辺が日本人が固まってるわけです
I
よ
think the biggest
フォーレンスのよう
concern
にその周りに日本人がたくさんいるわけですよ
struggling is can he win
だ
again?
から三つ葉とか八百半のあるあたり
Concerns about his judgment. Concerns about candidates he supports, and concerns about his criticism and attempted destruction of other people like Ron DeSantis.
だいたい5年くらい前に引っ越してきたからその時くらいから日本人が入り始めてきたのテキサス
だってこんな広いところでどこに固まるの？
ジ
ジャパニーズのコミュニティのプレーノ
だからないじゃないそんな
in the
場所。
conservative
だから
movement
店がある
who
よ
doesn't manage
三つ葉
to
とかあの
get
辺で
道はしかないじ
cut
ゃない
up。and shredded by leftist media because we just don't have the firepower to fight back the way and to outshout the voices of destruction. And they always find that thing that hurts you the most. I had one of the things I would just say on my podcast, I have a very deep discussion with Matt and Mercedes Schlapp about this attempted destruction of Matt a few months ago. And I would just say people will want to hear that conversation. I would say that Mercedes and Matt they're
言うにあれ
also
と事故の
suing.
元だからいつも私 U タ
And the guy
ー
that
ンするた
the
めに
accuser
信
is
号
on
ま
the
で行く
run
んだ
and
よ
hiding. So that's
そっちの方がいい
interesting.
から
But they're the one couple that I've seen really manage this better than anyone I've ever seen.
Talking to Sandy Rios. Sandy Rios is Director of Governmental Affairs for American Family Association. And she's the host of Sandy Rios 24/7 podcast here on American Family Radio. If you go to AFR.net, click on podcast, you can listen to all Sandy's podcasts. As she has more freedom now to, as she says, do longer interviews and commentaries. So check it out, Sandy Rios 24/7. All you need to do is go to AFR.net, click on Sandy's icon there, and listen to her podcast. Chris, did you have a question for Sandy?
I do have a question. In the last, 15 years-ish, we've had a black president and we have a female vice president. Based on that, do you think there will be a big push for the Republican nominee to pick a person of color, assuming the nominee is not a person of color, and or a female to be the running mate?
Of course, because the Republicans always follow. They don't lead. And I have to say, I can't resist saying, Chris, that whole notion is so repulsive to me. The whole notion that somehow because you're female, or you're brown, or you're black, or you're white, would make you a better president drives me nuts, because it has nothing to do with any of those things. God gives gifts independently. He gives abilities and always defies common wisdom. So but they'll do that because, they have to follow the culture. The culture says, this group needs to be this and this group needs to be that, dividing us, and they further divide us by kind of buying into that same logic. Yeah, so they will.
All right. Well, what's your 24 Sandy Rios 24/7? Listen, Sandy, thanks so much for your time and appreciate visiting with you. And
Tim,
keep up
can
the
I
good
just
work.
say?
Yes,
Can I
go.
just say one thing?
Uh-huh.
I mentioned Matt and Mercedes Schlapp, and that's the show that went up yesterday.
Okay.
So people want to listen to that. I recommend you do listen to that. So.
Yeah. Now you wished me happy birthday, which was yesterday, and I very much appreciate that. But in the put your money where your mouth is category, I'm not seeing many gift cards this year. I'm seeing cards, but anyway, just put that bug in the ear of Bruce.
I'm going to give you a lifetime subscription to the New York Times.
That's actually punishment. That's showing love. All right. Take care, Sandy. Talk to you later.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye. The wonderful Sandy Rios there. We love Sandy. Glad she's on our team.
I did share the link to her podcast, the one that she mentioned there with the Schlapps.
Uh-huh.
I shared that on our Facebook page, so check that out.
All right, next story, Chris.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot to...
You're a lot, Chris.
There really is. All right, let's go with here. I'm not trying to lose listeners here when I bring up one Dr. Anthony Fauci, but I bring this up because we've spent a lot of time in recent days talking about the growing opinion out there, even amongst people on the left, that COVID indeed was made in a lab and leaked from a place called Wuhan, China. Dr. Anthony Fauci, of course, has spent the last 3 years or so dismissing any notion out there that COVID was from a lab and it was leaked from Wuhan. And someone with a lot of time on their hands, and bless his heart for it, strung together various clips on a video I found on Twitter. It's got some music underneath it, but this here is a montage of various things Fauci
落ち
said
た
in recent
あれだ
years,
よね
dismissing notions that COVID
私の
was leaked from a lab.
婚約者がさいるけれども、もし神様が必要とされたら、なんていうのかな、スムーズに行くでしょ、何でも。それでなんていうの、ガバメントがそういったなってたとしても開けてくるでしょ、何か。ただパキスタンとか、
神様が与えた人だった。
だってロシアがアメリカと対戦してた時の時代、アメリカはロシアの敵だったのに、ロシア人が移民で来てるのをアメリカは一 級市民として受け入れてたでしょ。だからそれほど簡単だったわけじゃない。
簡単ではないですよ。いろんな方法があったでしょ。
Now that little part where it ended, he's talking about a paper out there that's dismissing notions covered.
だけどその道が開けたっていうこ
All
と
that
で
stuff. That's interesting because there are published reports today.
神様の不思議な道を持って道が開け
Newsmax
た。
has coverage on this too, I believe.
あとは
But
信
Fauci
仰でしょ。
may
信
have
仰
actually
で道が開
encouraged
けた。
researchers to write a paper dismissing the theory and later claimed he had nothing to do with it. That press conference there is where he's pushing the paper dismissing notions of the lab.
Ray, then Fred.
Well, look, we were covering this story early on, right? Early on. And I know we're not equal to CNN, and yeah, well, we should be far beyond CNN. We're better. But we were talking about this and skeptical about the whole thing that it couldn't be a leak from the lab and all. And now, basically, the very thing that Tony Fauci says, we're saying that there was a conspiracy. It basically now has been confirmed. Why anybody continues to listen to him today, I think he's been completely discredited.
Yeah, so let's make this very clear. The New York Post has this story. He just referenced these, important scientists who have written this paper. Well, Miranda Devine at the New York Post kind of lays this out in an article she did on March the 5th, just a few days ago. And basically, Anthony Fauci commissioned a paper to discredit that the virus came from the lab. And then he got up at a White House press conference and referred to that paper that he had commissioned as if he had nothing to do with it. He was just telling people, oh, look, these eminent scientists have come up with this paper that actually link it to bats, that don't link it to the lab. So,
And he wouldn't get the name of the researchers in
I
the paper.
wonder why.
Right.
Because you could probably Google it and say these people were friends of his.
Okay, this is manipulation.
Oh,
And dishonest. If it happened like you described it, I've read it too, Fred. In the emails, you give the timeline here, right,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
I mean, so how else would you describe this, Chris? Other than the way I just did.
Yeah, it's not good for Fauci. Republicans have long said, they were going to bring him in and have hearings on this, and
Did he retire?
He did. He stepped away, and he says he still wants to play a role in
カリフォルニアが
helping
雪降って
guide
こっ
the
ちが
people
暑
in
い
the
っていうのは
position that he was
変な
in.
気候なのかね
He wants to play a role in helping China.
Yeah.
You said that. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You didn't say that.
I mean, I've joked about this before on the show, but it's an actual quote from Sandy, the guest that we just had a
Right.
couple of years ago. Fred had me call her for something he was in the news for saying that day, and Sandy said, as God is my witness, Dr. Anthony Fauci is an evil, wicked, little smiling man.
Yeah. Hey, that's Sandy said that?
Sandy said that.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Need to put that on a t-shirt.
We'll sell it on the store.
So, let me ask you this, Ray. Any thought on why Fauci would want to cover for communist China?
Look, so much money. Don't they say follow the money, right? Follow the money where it comes from and where it's going to. I think the money explains everything. He didn't want his name or reputation to get sullied with the thought that a lab that under his leadership had received millions of dollars, right, through channels from the United States government didn't want his name to be sullied with that. Now the whole thing's come apart. I mean, it's the story that he wanted us to believe has completely fallen apart. Thus, what Sandy said.
Wow.
And the mainstream media, is not covering like the New York Post and what we're talking about here today. They still put him up on a pedestal because they know if the truth came out, it would discredit so much about the news coverage around COVID. And that's where we are today because the American people are finding out the truth slowly about
一番向こうに
mask
止める
mandates,
ところがあ
all
る
of this sort of
その
thing.
コーナー
We were
一番
talking, I think, in our story
右
meeting this
左
morning
の
about this
コーナー
tennis
の
player
向
from
こう側に
Oh,
入り
Djokovic
口
from
あるから
Serbia.
He
He's
still,
the number one player in the world.
ビ
he
ルディ
still
ング
can't come to this country.
一番コーナ
Still can't come
ーそれ
2
から
years in a row
DMV
he's
だか
gonna
ら
have to miss the
向こう
US
側に
Open,
求め
which
ら
is
れる
one
と
of
向
the
こう側のがあると思う
would he Grand Slam tournaments,
辺とか
4 Grand
それとか
Slam
こっち
tournaments
側
in
とか
professional tennis.
向こうにちょっと行っ
I
たところ
mean,
とか
and they're not the US is denying
スペースがあると
people
思う
entry
どれがで
unless you're a US
こっち
citizen
だからそこで
into
もいい
our
んだよ別
country
に
if you don't have the COVID vaccine shot.
そこで
Still,
も
Yes.
そこに
And that's after Biden said in the State of the Union that, quote, soon we will lift the public health emergency, which the administration is already on record as saying they're going to lift in May. So why would you not just make an exception for this guy?
and the guy's playing tennis, flies in on a private plane, walks out to
DRS
the
って書いてあ
tennis
るけどなんだ
court,
これ
wide open, playing a sport,
It's
which
up to
everybody in the stands does. They don't have a,
UPS
you don't have to be vaccinated to be in the
Yeah.
stand. You don't have to have a mask on.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous what Biden's keeping up here with this. He's keeping it up till May, right?
Yes, and keep in mind too, in places like New York City,
Possibly
they
get
give
it.
athletes an
Corona.
exemption, professional
Yeah.
athletes an exemption for not being
And
vaccinated.
have for over
Yeah.
a year now. I don't understand it, but
教
anyway.
会の前だからほら
こっちか
All
ら
right, we got about a minute or two left, Chris, in your segment here, your hour. What do you want to be remembered for this hour, Chris?
I want to be remembered for telling people about Jesus, but
分かった
between
先
now
週
and
あの紙見せて